Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. We are out here on the farm here in central Kentucky. We are going to be talking today about screening, just how important screening really is, and a few things that relate to screening and how you can possibly relate them to your hunting scenarios and what maybe you need them for. The term screening is so broad when we talk about different aspects of it. Is it screening past a from a road? Are you trying to get that security screening? Are you trying to get screening past a food plot? Is it your access? Is it short term, long term? There's all kinds of things about screening, right? So today what we're going to talk about, guys, is what I use and what I use it for. I'm going to show you a couple examples here, right? So what I use is John Comp's HD screening when we're talking about that annually planted screening. And I use that in a couple of different ways. One, that HD screening is what I plant around my food plots. So on that topic, guys, I do that to give the food plot security and kind of make it that smaller look to them and feel to them versus what you can see. As I'll turn you around here, guys, is this plot right here. We're standing in one of the shop plots, the clover and chicory plots, which is looking excellent. That's actually from John as well. That everything in here is our summer blend, and then you can see obviously where I've got the screening. Everything below it is all into switch and CR. We're letting it kind of go back feral CRP, if you will. But for example, this is how open this is below us to this food plot. So not only the shop plot, right, because of the blind that we've got right here, we call that size blind, which is mainly gun hunting, but you can crossbow hunt out of it. I set that up for the kids in case they wanted to come down. Like my daughter wanted to come down and spend a weekend, we could potentially crossbow hunt out of that. You can see the house way in the background there, guys, and this is how open this top field is with glasses. What's cool about it with glasses, I can see it from the farm, but I put that there for the security blanket to make sure that I can get these deer daylighting out of this doe bedding area right here, guys, out into this food plot earlier, quicker during daylight hours. What I don't do, guys, most of the time, 99.9% of the time, what I don't do is I don't ever box the entire food plot in. You can see I've got that on the outside. So I've got it that it separates right here. It separates the shop plot from the food plot so I can get in and out of this blind. But I did not go all the way around it and put that screening on the doe bedding side. I've got that nice soft edge right there. And the reason for that is this. I think because of the height that HD screening is, or any screening, but especially John's, which is taller and way more durable than what you're going to find out there anywhere else on the market. And believe me when I say that, guys, I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, as they say, right? And there's nothing that holds up to, especially where I'm originally from, the harsh conditions such as Michigan. Now, here in Kentucky, there's a lot of things that probably do a little bit better because we don't have the harsh winters, but we have had a bunch of ice here. Kentucky, where I'm at, is notorious for that. And I'm here to tell you, it was the only thing standing up. I used to do is plant the HD screening as far as maybe half rated and then put Egyptian wheat into it. I've tried Sudan sorghum and the Egyptian wheat together, and all that stuff crushes. So the reason that I don't box that in, guys, is because I really think that because of the height and the density of it, it can get too tight sometimes. So it's a half-acre plot here, guys, right at a half-acre plot, and then the shop plot. So it's probably that 6/10, I guess you could call 7/10, probably close to 3/4 of an acre. So that's one aspect of it, right? Locking in that, kind of making that area your food plots feel more comfortable for them, getting them to daylight quicker. The other thing of that is, guys, I'm going to show you up here, I'll add a clip, is I've got a bunch of that I actually plant on for a road frontage for a screen blocker that acts as a blocker from the traffic, and it also acts as a blocker for my access behind it. But my access goes past it in the morning. I get on my fence row and I go down full, well, not full length of it, but 3/4 of the length of where I have it planted. So that's kind of the other aspect of it. The other thing that I use it for, right, is for my screening. So we're going to touch on a couple things here, guys, that kind of how I plan it. What you can see here is John Comp there at NorthWoods Whitetails really recommend that you get that, you know, inch, get it buried in the ground about an inch. Well, the only way that I can do that is to disc. Now you can see none of my other food plots are disked because I don't need that seed buried that deep when I do my kind of my regenerative ag no-till approach that we do here. So the only way I can get that is to disc. The problem with that is, guys, is this is not, I'm two discs in. I just bought another used $500 disc the other day, and I've got 5 acres of this, so maybe went over it 3 times, right? And I broke that again. So it's just not, it's not very, you know, very easy, I guess you could say, on the implements down here. So what we're gonna do eventually, there again, that's where a drill comes in, so you could spray it as they recommend. They recommend fertilizing it with 19, about 100 pounds per acre, then spraying it, spraying that area. I like to plant it at least 12 to 15 feet wide. So I know these videos are sometimes deceiving. That looks narrower. I can look at it here in the screen. It looks narrower than it really is. About 12 foot wide, guys, because it's so tall that when the wind does blow, there's a lot of wind drag there, if you will. So 12 to 15 feet wide is what has worked really well for me. So fertilizing it with 19, 100 pounds per acre, spraying it with glyphosate. If you're going to use 2,4-D, then make sure that you have, you know, you wait that 2-week time period, 14 days before you plant. So this time I'm on client trips here soon, so I actually sprayed this twice with glyphosate to set that back. Then they recommend disking, then planting. So, you know, so what I did is I disked, and then I seeded, and then I drug just a log because my crimper was broke, that I use sometimes as a crimper and a cultipacker. I run that log around there and just covered up that seed. And then luckily when I finished, it was right during a rain. So you can see, guys, it's nice and level, and it's off and going now. So should be really good here within about a month. You should start seeing it. So then what we do is we come back with the urea later, or you can come back with more 19 when those leaves are dry to really give it a boost. One thing to keep in mind with that, guys, is something I've learned over time, is I'm just as impatient, if not more so, than everybody watching this. And I've called John a couple times, like, hey, what's wrong here? What did I do wrong? And just be patient is what he always tells me. And there's so much truth to that, guys. It's very slow growing, and then all of a sudden you get to about that July, end of July, middle of July, end of July, and it sounds ridiculous, but I swear that stuff grows a foot a day. I mean, it's crazy. It just explodes, and when it's exploding is when you want to fertilize it to really give it a boost. So I just add more 19 to it. So what they recommend doing, guys, after you plant it and you cover it up, is to run simazine over top of it, and to really kill kind of as that pre-emergent, right, to make sure nothing is growing in that. So I've got a test on some that I'm doing here on the farm this year. I've got some that I did that to and some that I did not. So I'm seeing how that actually interacts with my ground. So always remember, guys, one of the biggest things is this, on a closing note. Screening is a very, very, very great tool. I'm just I feel blessed to be able to use John's HD screening. I think he's got it figured out. But here's the problem, guys. A lot of folks don't realize screening is only screening if it does not have food in it. That's why I use the HD screening. There's so much flashy bags or big celebrity screenings out there, whatever you want to call it, right? Or just concoctions that we try to make ourselves, that we add sorghum and shorter sorghum, and you add, you know, clovers and whatever into those, guys. If that screening has anything to do with your access, make sure 110% it does not have food in it. So they will not eat this unless they're starving, they won't eat this HD screening of John's. So make sure, like my road frontage one out here, I'm going to show you my one that my access goes past. So if you have to get past a food plot or something, you're relying on that screen, make sure it doesn't have food. If it has food, it's not screening, right? Because one, they will bed in it, and one, they are in there feeding in it. So it's not a screen then if you're inviting deer to the plate. So on the other hand, around the food plots where you're not accessing past, so this piece of it right here that you see, guys, is just to help me get in and out of that stand when there's deer out in the food plot. So they come out of the transition right here. You can see there's a mineral right here. They come out of the transition, hit the shot plot, and then we'll poke a hole right here, or where the road is where we release them out into the food plot there, right? I can take 2 steps out of this blind that's right behind me, right there. 2 steps out of that blind, out the back door, right along this bench, all my corn's up above it, and it's just this kind of shelf in here that I get right out the back door, and they have no idea. There's a lot of times I get in that stand, especially in the mornings. I creep in here and there's deer out in the field. I get in here in evening hunts, there's deer out in the field. That blind, actually, guys, is not just looking at the shot plot. It's probably one of the coolest blinds we have on the entire property. That blind right there, and I've showed you footage of that before. That actually looks down into a water hole down in that big holler, and we're looking out the left window to this greens and grains. So one of those things, right? If you can cover that with a gun, you'd be crazy not to, but just make sure you're never looking out the front window of a blind to a food plot. In most cases, unless it's a extreme far with a gun or something. But here around this food plot, guys, there's a shot plot on that end with a box blind. It's kind of a dog bone shape, I guess you could say. Shot plot, screening, food plot, screening, shot plot, right? This around here can have food in it because I'm not walking past it. I'm just entering in the end on that one, and I'm entering in the end on this one, and I'm not walking past any of this screening. So if they're eating it, if they're eating in it, walking past it, bedding in it, I don't really care because I'm not blowing my scent into it. Obviously, I'm not walking past it. But just remember, guys, kind of as a closing, if you are going to go past screening, it's not screening if it has food. So the other side of screening is your long-term screening. It takes years to get this accomplished. So sometimes you can run both, right? You do like a triple row, that staggered triple row of spruce or conifer, maybe white pine, red pine, spruce combination. And then over time you plant, so during that time you plant the HD screening on the inside of it. Over time, when those conifers get tall enough, well, you take those out, or you're screening out of play as far as your HD screening, and you don't have to plant that anymore because your long-term screening of your trees are they kind of take over and they cure that issue. Problem with it is, guys, it can take 10 to 15 years. And I'm a pretty tall guy, and I mean, it's years and years and years sometimes to get that stuff to work. Or you can be like me, where a lot of my road is above my ground, and I could have 80-foot trees and it's not going to gain me anything, right? So it's all very farm specific, area specific, plot specific. Everything ties into that. But just remember, any of your screening, plant it 12 foot wide at least, 12, 15 feet wide. 20 foot wide is better if you have the room. And make sure that if you are accessing past it, do not let it have food in it, or don't place short Sudan sorghum or feed sorghum or anything like that in it, guys, thinking you're actually making it denser, because that sorghum head at some time is going to be viable and those deer are going to eat it. So remember, screening is great, has its great purpose. It does wonders for us here every year, but we do not want food in it when we're trying to access past it. So if you're looking for screening, guys, you're looking for an annual screening that you can plant and rely on, I highly recommend the HD screening through John Comp at NorthWoods Whitetails. Thanks, guys.